Fearless.
Provocative.
Straight talking. We will say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense.
Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Heartfelt and passionate. Thought-provoking, provocative and controversial.
Fearless and truthful.
Welcome to The Pledge, the programme committed to fearless and passionate debate. It's the final showdown of this series at least. And so, appropriately, Nick's warning us all not to say something stupid. Emma wants to teach the best of British. Michelle's calling for a scumbag blackout, and James reveals that as a dad, at least, he's a soft touch. The Olympics, at its best, is the greatest show on earth, binding nations together. And this year, for the first time, refugees are competing under the flag of the dispossessed, which is profoundly moving. But is it time to let the flame finally go out? Russian athletes have been banned for doping. Tumbleweed rolls through Olympic parks the world over. And if you applied cold business logic to the Games, no country should ever host them unless it's shooting for bankruptcy. The 2016 edition, which opens in Rio de Janeiro this week, costs only $4 billion. But Brazil is deep into recession and supposed austerity and can ill afford it. The world right now is paying too high a price for Olympic glory. I'd like to see the Games scaled right back to basics, or it's time to call the whole five-ring circus off.
Rachel, I really disagree with you.
Good.
Yeah, and I've actually changed a lot. So when we had 2012, the Olympics, I wasn't interested. When I heard that London was hosting them, I couldn't care less. There was opportunities to volunteer, never engaged. There were, what was they called, like raffles or ballots to get the tickets for the events. Didn't care less. I just was completely disengaged. I just thought, pointless, doesn't interest me, whatever. Massive mistake. I look back at 2012, and what I did manage to do, I managed to get a couple of tickets for a couple of bits, and I feel like I missed out. I wish that I'd got more engaged at the start of that process, because the Olympics, for me, ended up being such an amazing experience. I got tickets to see a couple of things, and I felt inspired. You talk about if it was a business and what we do in terms of the cost, but the Olympics are not just about a cost for me. When I think of Olympic, we live in a world at the moment, and we're going to talk about some subjects in a bit on this show, that are so negative and like down and horrible. And the Olympics are something that bring us all together with positivity and niceness.
Of course, Michelle, but it was a huge party that we paid £9 billion for, and I think that actually Olympicopolis in East London is maybe going to be an exception that doesn't prove the rule, which is that they're rotting Olympic parks the world over. We've managed to salvage the East London's site, but in Montreal, you know, Rio is already being predicted to be a sort of white elephant as Sochi.
Rachel, it's not all about money.
It is all about money. We live in an austerity world.
It's about promoting a nation. It's about bringing communities together. You can't always link everything down to money.
You can do that without spending many, many billions of pounds that a host nation can ill afford.
But every nation, when they win the Olympic Games, has this massive, you know, jubilation of pride to say that, you know, in Rio, you know, they outbid Madrid, they outbid Tokyo, they outbid a number of very prominent countries. So what I'm saying is, I agree, financially, disaster, full stop. But I'm not sure that I would take away something that countries fight for, they really believe in.
I'm not saying
that puts
take
them
it
on the
away.
map.
I'm saying it's time to stop and go back to basics
But
and maybe give it back to
out.
Greece, really scale it down so that countries don't bankrupt themselves. What do you think, Nick?
Well, you're right and you're wrong. It's worth reminding yourself that your brother did pretty well out of the 2012 Games, as indeed did London, and I think some of the success that London has enjoyed was because it is a fantastic showpiece. You put a city, and if a city works, which London did, despite your brother's best intentions. If a city works, then it does very, very well out of it. Rio, I think, actually will not benefit from being put under the microscope. But
there
where
are
I
riots
have,
in Rio as the flame
I know, they're trying to put the flame out.
Nick.
But where I have absolutely no interest in it, you may as well watch Keith Moon at play, because they are on so many drugs. So many of them are on so many drugs. Most of the Russian team, or many of the Russian team, have issues. I just don't believe it anymore. Somebody runs this fast, somebody jumps this high, jumps this long, whatever it might be. I just question whether they can actually do it without some...
So your point is
so it's totally tarnished.
Olympic ideal has been ruined not by the fact that the countries beggar themselves in putting on the show.
No, I'm with James on the money side.
But we've lost faith in the ideal.
I mean, I would do it the other way. I would actually do it the other way. I would positively encourage drug use, so I would fill them with as many drugs as possible and just see how far... So they'd all be like... and they'd be leaping about 50... I mean, that would be sensible. So then all the scientists... I mean, that would be really fun. I'd watch that.
Idea, no.
Well,
Emma, what do you think of my idea? That, I think we should have bottled the spirit of 2012. I was at the opening ceremony. I actually have watched it. No, I didn't get my ticket from the gaffer. Don't you dare. No, I went as a journalist. Okay. I did a big piece.
You weren't dressed as a nurse, were you?
I was jumping on the NHS beds. I wrote a piece about the Olympic opening ceremony. I totally drunk the Kool-Aid. But looking back on that, how many millions did that opening ceremony
cost? The benefits
cost?
for London has been fantastic.
Yes.
It was a
benefits
great...
for East London has been regenerated.
Sorry, I know,
not
but
for London as a whole.
Massive for London.
Rachel, no, it's about, to me...
Sorry, we had Emma going.
Yes,
Emma, let's have it. I'm sort of enjoying this. It's almost like an Olympics to watch here. I think the thing to say...
Emma's actually dressed as a member of the Romanian basketball team. It's an extraordinary outfit.
Thank you. The day I take fashion tips from you, Nick Ferrari, will be a completely odd moment.
Emma, actually, what would be your Olympic sport?
What would be my Olympic sport?
If you had to choose one.
It would be tennis.
Play or watch. Oh, really?
Yes.
Tennis player.
I think this could also pass for that as well. I've come as anything sporting. I feel that there's something interesting when people make comparisons to the World Cup versus, let's say, the Olympics, and you look at the World Cup and it's just a group of men basically playing with a ball.
Oh, we're going to get gender again.
No. But what's amazing when you compare it to the Olympics is how many people are represented from all around the world.
200 nations.
That's the diversity. No, but also the range of sports that you get to see. And what's amazing, I was reading a beautiful piece by a journalist who's done now 7 Olympics, who said when he first went in, he was overwhelmed, he didn't know where to go. And then he realised it didn't matter where he went, because what you would see that day, doping aside, is somebody doing their very, very best. And there's just something very different about it, because I think you can't say something like the Olympics needs to scale down and then we don't look at football in the same way. And I know football's an industry that works, but if you look at these great sporting events, and I'm not a sports fan, they do something wonderful. And I don't think you can tether it to cash in that way.
Yes, but it's 17 days and the country has to budget for, the long term. And they are going to splash out many billions of pounds. They can't ill afford, they don't have health care in Rio. The favelas don't have running water. And they're spending probably 10 billion on 17 days of
television contracts
for the biggest party on earth.
But the
legacy, don't even start on legacy, Michelle.
So for me, we live in this world that is obsessed with this ridiculous Z-list celebrity culture. We've got so much media around. This girl's got a bikini on, or got her boobs out, or lost a pound, or gained a pound. The role models that young people grow up with and aspire to be are ridiculous. And then when I think of sporting achievements, so we've got a guy, Luke Campbell, from Hull, my hometown. He got gold in 2012, boxing. He has inspired so many young people.
Well, how come we've got so many fat kids, then?
How come we've got so many fat kids?
If 2012 was such a great inspiration, why have we got more fat kids now than we did in 2012?
Well, God, don't get me started. That was one of my earliest topics.
But,
so
it clearly didn't work, did it?
But it did. So, for example, I'm doing the London Triathlon on Sunday, and I use the Olympic Park. I use their facilities, and so do many people that I know. We use those facilities. We're inspired by people that we watch. It brings about a new generation of role models.
But all they're using the Bird's Nest Stadium.
You're not going to get rid of fat kids.
Well, you said it's going to inspire people. Well, clearly it doesn't. Kids are running around or doing whatever.
Well, that's probably because of sports fields and too much telly and iPhones, which we're going into in a bit.
Yeah. But
I think, we're getting a little bit over economic about this. I think the financials, I agree with all those points, but I do think when you go back into history, the effect on countries, on their brand, on their recognition. If you look at Korea, I'd never heard of Seoul before those Olympics. It puts a country on the map. And it's not about today or 5 years. It's forever. These countries, that legacy lasts. The brand, the recognition, the trade, the inward investment. Whilst I understand when you read the papers and you look at what's happening in Rio, but I do not think it's time to turn the flame out, Rachel.
Right, it's my turn now. The number of deadly attacks carried out in Europe by ISIS is on the increase, And as a result, the amount of media PR ISIS and its warped members are getting is also on the rise. There are many complex reasons as to why young people are joining this death cult. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers, but what I do know is that stopping this scourge is a battle that needs to be fought on many fronts, and the media can play a critical role. After the recent killing of a Catholic priest, several French media outlets decided to stop publishing photographs of the terrorists to avoid giving them posthumous glorification. These guys travel with their ID cards. They want their names to be known. But I think that these scumbags should be starved of the publicity that they so desperately crave.
As a journalist, I couldn't disagree with you more. We're sitting on Sky News, the home of information, a home of information. Factual reporting is essential when a country is under attack and when the world is under attack. It's the duty of the media to expose and reveal information. That is what we're here to do. That is why we are here in a transparent society, in a democracy. And actually, two things. I know you don't think if we follow the route of Le Monde that suddenly people won't be signing up to be terrorists. However, there are much deeper reasons why people are going off to do this. And actually, if you starve people of information, you get a load of facts that are no longer facts. You get misinformation, which is more dangerous. And I think if you're going to go down this route of saying, just because it's going to give glory and maybe we'll give other people ideas, you have to then apply that to basically the rest of the news agenda. And we'll be facing a media blackout if we go down this route. We have a duty to report things factually, clearly, and not do anything else with it, especially if you look at the rules around suicide reporting. They're very, very clear. We never show as journalists doing it. We never say how people do these acts because we don't want people to copy them.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
and this is
you
my
don't
point.
need to explain what a bomber has done. You don't need to not say that. You need to say where they are, who they're working for, and where the attack was. If I just finish on this point, I have more of an issue with this. Yesterday, my mum said to me, have you seen the front page of the Evening Standard? And on it is here what Sir Bernard Hogan-Howe has revealed in London, which are these absolute, what's he calling, sort of robocops, right? I have more of an issue with the police doing a press conference telling us exactly how they're going to tackle terror because I don't want the terrorists to know exactly where they're going to be, how they're armed. No, but you can pull a face. If you're going to say something, the way we report this stuff is really important, but we cannot and we shouldn't censor information about terrorists.
But you've just agreed.
I think what Michelle's saying is not that the media don't report them,
of course
but
not.
She used the word glorification, and I think there is a lot of evidence to show that the death cult is attracting people and it's contagious when their faces are on the front pages. They are on rolling news all the time, and it's not the 72 virgins in heaven they're really after. They think, I'm going to create an atrocity and my face is going to be on the front page. And I think, as you say, Emma, the world is at war. The media isn't obliged. There's no law saying they have to go on the front pages. Their faces have to be on rolling news. We are commercial organisations. We also have a responsibility not to create the contagion and add to the daily atrocities by giving the impression that if you are the perpetrator of an atrocity, that you will be on the front pages of all the newspapers all around the world. I think Le Monde is taking a bold, if futile, step
well, Rachel,
in doing
for someone
this.
as you are in the industry, I am
for
absolutely
my whole life.
appalled
I say this as a journalist. My whole life,
I am
Nick.
appalled at your naivety. Why do you suppose, with the exception of incidents such as Leveson, there are such close relations between police and the media? Why do you suppose that is?
Because the police leak to the media.
No, because the media publicise the pictures of people that need to be found. When you're after certain people, that's what the media does. The fact that you might put a picture of a young man from Paris, from Brussels, from Nice, wherever, and somebody sees it in the paper and says, my God, he used to go around next door's house. I saw him. What on earth is going on next door? That is called information. That is the sort of information we need. It's taken an entire series that Emma and I have actually agreed, literally an entire series. I actually agree wholeheartedly. I didn't have the problem. I know what you're saying about the cops. I didn't have a problem with that. But you are wholly right. And the minute you start saying, oh, I don't like that picture. Yes,
no, James,
absolutely yes.
I think you're right. I think as journalists, I think you're very clever, you're very creative, and I agree with you. You can report a story in whichever way you want. in terms of focusing on the issues and what's happened, but to take the individual and give him the publicity that provoked him from doing the event in the first place cannot be right. We are just fueling these people to get the publicity that they're desperate for.
First of all, they're usually dead by the point they're on the front page. But secondly, and I think we need to do even better jobs of revealing why people are doing what they're doing.
You can do that without publicising.
I think to say that somebody is going to sign up because they're on the front page of a newspaper in France or not is completely
But nobody's
naive.
saying that. I've not sat here and made this point and said, by not publishing these people's names and pictures, we're going to stop this problem. That's absolutely not what I said. What I said was, this whole thing is a mess. It's getting more and more out of control. And when you are giving them the oxygen of publicity, ISIS has become a brand. When you pick up some of these newspapers, if ISIS had paid a PR company to write a headline for them, they could have done a better job themselves.
You're getting yourself in... Supposing the bomber survives, so he's not a suicide bomber, so God forbid he blows up a railway station somewhere and we have a picture of him. Are we allowed to put his picture in the paper?
Do you know, I don't want, right, if some idiot...
No, sorry, it's a yes or no. He has survived, he blew up Berlin railway station.
No, the answer is no. I don't want to know.
So how the hell...
Hang on.
So how the hell are we going to find him?
I'm going to help you out. So, no,
how the hell are we going to find him?
Can we just talk about the fact that...
let's found him by knowing that he's not dead. I'm assuming you already know where he is.
Let's just talk about...
I want to track him down.
Nick, for a moment, this will help. A specific example about how information, where you were talking about police working with the media in a good way, has actually had an impact. Let me just play you this clip, which is The Secret of the IS Files, which is a documentary that went out on Sky News, and I'll tell you why it had an impact.
It's hard to quantify just how many fighters have ghosted their way into Europe, but we do now know the names of some of these from the Islamic State files. 24-year-old Fouad Mohamed Agad was a native Frenchman born in Strasbourg. His file records his name as Abu Sayed al-Franzi and that he had joined the organisation in 2013. And like so many Westerners who join Islamic State, nobody saw it coming.
And let me tell you about this. They uncovered a register of IS recruits of foreign fighters, pulled out all that information. They couldn't have done any of this with a media blackout. And security services in this country acknowledged that the work that Sky News had done on this particular story, and there's many other examples in the media, was invaluable intelligence. If we have a media blackout, you can't do journalism like that. You can't
saying
find
it's
a
media blackout.
So you've brought up the French examples of photos and names.
She's not saying we're not going to run any documentaries and trying to get into the inner workings of ISIS.
How could we use...
That's not glorifying the activities of a scumbag suicide bomber who blew up 30 people. That's doing an investigation.
Who's going to make these decisions? Why don't you just do it the way that Emma and I do it, which is that we have a free press, as Emma said, and when you get pictures of these vile individuals, you put them in the paper or you put them on the telly. Why don't we just do it like... It's so bloody simple.
Do you think there's a link to how much coverage terrorism gets versus how much then it's copied?
I hate answering a question with a question, but you honestly telling me if we stop running it would end?
No, you told me.
I see no link. I see no link at all. I see no link whatsoever.
You see no link with how much
these people are so
terrorism gets.
They are so warped. They are so barbaric. They are so twisted. They so misinterpret the faith. They are beyond the pale. It wouldn't matter whether they're in the papers or whether they were.
Airtime that they're desperate for.
But I find
That's the point she's making.
I find that worrying as a journalist. Honestly, as a journalist,
you find that. I find that bloody worrying. You don't want to run the pictures. The Berlin bomber that I made up is now on the loose and we can't run his picture.
Because as a journalist, you just told me that you see no correlation with how much exposure we give terrorism versus how much that will inspire others to copy.
I doubt these people take newspapers.
Can I bring us into the 21st century? You're talking about the front page like it's the 80s, right? What about the internet? OK? You're deciding the front page. How many people read Le Monde anymore? Right? It's declining. Let's talk about the internet. The picture, if it's on page 10, it'll be on the top trend on Twitter.
But it's about...
Do you think people will really be Googling the face of the man who blew up 30 people in a nightclub?
People are involved in the news themselves now, in spreading information. Let's stop pretending we're living in an era where the front page is the front page of the old.
But that's
people get the information and do what they want with it.
But what I think is going to happen is...
Because I would respond to that by saying what we need to do is to create a cultural shift by how we are reporting these terrorists. So we start by these massive media organisations paving the way, making the decisions like Le Monde and the rest of them. They start with this precedent. We then start
Just tell
following.
me how it works. No photos of terrorists ever.
Yep.
Right, ever, not on page 12.
Even if we're hunting for them.
Okay.
Even if we're looking
So-
for
Well,
them.
if we're hunting for someone, that's slightly different.
Oh, so we are allowed to run them.
So we're taking our media lessons from China now.
If we're hunting for somebody, then of course we need to find them. If what we're doing is glorifying some muppet who's decided
But what
to
if it
go
says
wandering
scumbag,
off,
like you called them? What if it says scumbag above his head and that's not glorifying them?
Emma, right, when you look at why are these young people joining ISIS and stuff like that, I'm fed up of reading about, oh, they're disaffected, they're disengaged, they don't feel part of society and all the rest of it. So when they're feeling like that,
that's
what they
true.
want, yeah, so
Sorry
then
if you're
what
fed
they're
up with
trying
it, but
to
that's the
create...
news.
Reality.
Yes, but then what they're trying to achieve when they're feeling like this is they want to feel important, they want to feel somebody, they want to, I'm disaffected, I'm disengaged, I'll make people stand up and notice me and remember me, I'll become somebody, my final act, I'll become somebody. Well, do you know what, actually? No, you won't, because we'll stop printing who you are, we'll stop talking about you, and actually, you'll just become a nobody. Full stop.
How many can you name?
How many can I name?
Tell me the names of some of the recent terrorist attacks. Can you name any of them?
No,
Can I
that's more
name
important. We can't name any of the victims. There are 247
Yeah, and
victims
that
of
is
terrorism
I don't
this
think they're as
summer.
famous as you make out. I think it's
They're not.
like
Let's
that.
consign them to the obscurity
Panellists.
they so clearly
Let's agree
deserve.
to disagree.
Well, I agree
time.
with you, Michelle.
All
Thank
right.
you, James.
On that moment of accord, it's time for a blackout, temporary blackout on your debate because we move on. It is time, and not for the first time, to give thanks for the pledge, committed as we are to free speech. That's because there's been yet another assault on that fundamental right. This time, the offender is a dopey advertising boss who lost his job, first suspended, then he resigned, for the crime of speaking his mind. Now, while his crass comments clearly belong to another age, just when did this Stalinist imposition of groupthink creep in? Some people say some smart things. Some people say some dumb things. Do they all have to be pursued on each and every occasion like some modern-day McCarthyite witch hunt? After all, if we all got into trouble every time we said or did anything stupid, none of us here would still be in work.
Nick, I'm really confused with this one. I was sitting there thinking, if I had a CEO working for me and he made a comment like that, would I immediately suspend him or sack him?
I'm going to come back to you because let's just, for viewers who don't remember, let's just remind the viewers exactly what he said. Here we are. This is Kevin Roberts, the former executive chairman for Saatchi & Saatchi. Their ambition is not a vertical ambition, it's this intrinsic circular ambition to be happy. He's talking about women, of course. So they say we're not judging ourselves by those standards that you idiotic dinosaur-like men judge yourself by. He goes on, I'm just not worried about, that's the lack of women in leadership roles, because they're very happy, they're very successful and doing great work. James, you run a lot of companies. Would he be gone for that?
It's a difficult one, Nick. I would
People
probably...
say dopey things.
Yeah,
as I
that's
said
what I'm
right at
saying.
the top.
I would probably call him in. You know,
Yeah, fair enough.
I would call
Slap
him
him
in
about a bit.
and I would reprimand him, tell him that that is not acceptable as an organisation. He has a responsible position, you know, both for the company and society, and, you know, we would not tolerate that. But after 20 years, would I force him to resign over it? It's his opinion. You know, I'm not saying it's right.
Thank you.
The problem that you've got, because I agree with a lot of what you said, is this wasn't a conversation that he was having at home with his friend.
No.
This was in a professional publication that he was being interviewed to represent Saatchi & Saatchi. So he was speaking on behalf of Saatchi & Saatchi. So after 20 years in a role in a company, one would expect that you understand the culture and the values.
Especially at Saatchi & Saatchi.
Exactly. So one would expect that as a senior exec, you understand the culture and values.
Sure.
Yes, but what I'm saying is we do get things wrong, and I put my foot in it all the time.
Yeah.
But when you are interviewed and you're representing the brand, this is not a casual thing. He was representing the brand. You must, and I argued this about the Love Island girl when I was saying about losing her title, not conforming to the brand values. When you're at a professional stage and you're interviewed in a professional capacity, you must always represent the values of your employer in that scenario.
I've got a different
Yeah,
question.
you've been strangely, quite frighteningly quiet.
No,
on this
because
so
we'll
far.
can we come on to in a moment, which I suspect is the more interesting part of this debate, is what he was actually saying about women and us having lovely circular ambitions and no desire to get to the top. No
We've
desire
got
at all.
circular ambitions. Men have got
Delighted
vertical ones. I mean,
confused there.
it's so Freudian.
Let me come back to that.
Free
I've got a question to you. It's the same area as Nick was questioning here. I would be suddenly very worried if I was his boss. I was surprised that he got suspended because I read the whole interview and I thought, you know, pretty short-sighted,
Yeah,
nice guy, misogynist, worked with many of them. Know many of them very well, fondly. But what I would say is...
Did she look at you then?
Are you of the mindset, or would you be worried that he had impeded women's ascension in a company? Would you be concerned that his view of women being happy where they were had impacted when he had chosen women for a job?
You know, I was thinking about that a lot, and I thought...
Because that's the legal area.
But the interesting thing is, the industry that he represents actually is highly dominated by very successful women.
It's not at the top. 35%
Creative
at the
directors
top.
only about 15% of women.
But if you look around, I'm not just saying media in terms of advertising, marketing,
No,
that
but
whole
answer
industry.
the question. He specifically said women are happy here, milling around in the middle bit, what they call the bottleneck, so they never really quite get up to the top. He's a top guy. He will have been responsible for appointing all sorts of people throughout this long career that he's had. My first concern, if I was his boss, obviously I would never get to the top because I'm happy swimming around here in a circular ambition pool with Rachel and Michelle here. If I was at the top, I would think, hang on a minute, who's he interviewed lately? And did he just think they were happy where they were?
I would be very disappointed. I'd be extremely disappointed that as somebody in a position of responsibility at the top, that he would have such a warped view. I would find that strange because there are people in his own...
Wait a minute, before... Just I understand.
No, but the fact that he thinks that women have got no ambition, that they're going to be just...
Some of them don't. Some of them just are happy.
No,
before we move on to
hang on, let me just finish the question. So,
Yeah,
so I don't think... You know, I would be very disappointed because actually, as the chief executive at Organise It, which is the size of
But what would
Saatchi...
disappointed mean?
But hang on, I'd be disappointed to the extent that he should be much more balanced, because that's what you expect somebody in that position.
But we're getting away from the group thing. This is the debate, not necessarily the gender impact. It's why this man has resigned, been suspended, whatever.
Can
it is
I
simply
ask
for saying something stupid.
Provocative.
Yes, I like to.
Please
Welcome to the pledge.
Fearless. What if Sheryl Sandberg had said, sometimes women are happy where they are?
She said something stupid as
just
well.
remind me who Sheryl Sandberg is, Chief Operating Officer of Facebook.
What if a woman
But you're going to the
had
gender
said
side
this?
of it
Wait,
again.
no. But would she have had to resign if she had said,
Most
in my
certainly not.
experience of running a
Most
business,
certainly
a third of women in the group are happy where they are. They don't want to rise to the top because they've got parents and they've got kids and they're happy where they are. Would she have taken early retirement?
Do you know what? Many women have said such things when I was
Exactly, and
researching
he
this,
had to
and they haven't been subject to those rules, and they should be. It should be equal. If you're going to say... Basically, my issue with this is we need to stop treating women like some weird homogenous blob. There are unambitious women and there are ambitious women, just like the same in male groups.
So we've got to stop treating them like a minority who need special treatment.
Yeah, exactly. But this is to come back to your point, Nick, which is the question.
Which is about the group thing, as opposed to the gender fight, which I I agree is mad. He shouldn't have said it.
Could we get that on tape? No, seriously.
I think he was right. He was well within his rights to say it.
But to answer...
Wasn't he?
Hang on a minute.
Probably not in his job.
Sorry, I don't think in that job you can say something like that. I really don't.
But all the bosses say should say he's dopey.
But a
and he's on
female
awareness.
boss
He should have said, I'm
should
sorry.
be subject to that as well.
Isn't it? That's the way to do it.
But would a woman have had to resign for saying that? No. So, in fact, he is the victim of discrimination.
That's a bit of a stretch.
He's gone against the values of the business in a public interview.
And that's what I'd have a problem with.
Yeah, but it's not only
definitely.
that he's gone against them, it's that that's what he
But
thinks.
We're getting to a point. What Nick's saying is, and I
not
can't believe
allowed
how
to
much
say
agreement
what
there
we
is here.
think.
If we're getting to a
course you
point...
What you and I do is going to become impossible
We're
because
getting
you
to
can't
a
have an
point where
opinion.
censorship is basically the order of the day. Because, tell you what I'm more concerned about is... I'm more concerned that he holds those views in that job.
Correct.
Like
Wouldn't you
James
rather
is
know
saying,
that he
but
does?
I'd rather know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you'd rather know.
Yes, but
we
then you'd
get to
rather
this-
know that with a conversation. You can't. It was a public interview where he's representing your brand. When you've done work to make yourself a progressive and inclusive employer...
Do you know how boring these interviews would be? We'd never find anything out if they're media trained within an inch of their lives.
Yeah, but it's not about being media trained. It's about, if you represent your brand, he's paid, I would imagine, or was paid, a stack of money by his employer to do the best job for that organisation. He needs to understand the culture and the values of that business. He either does or he doesn't.
Well, he's thought like
Michelle,
it.
I'm
Please,
sure
no,
his
Michelle.
boss had a conversation with him and say, you need to do the right thing and step down. So there is no question that is exactly what happened. because he put the company into disrepute and has caused damage, and I think it happened really quickly.
Or he could use this moment, and the company could possibly use this moment to say, you know what, I'm an idiot. I don't understand female ambition. Let's work with this and let's do something.
He did kind of come out and he did give an incredible apology, and he apologised.
He needs his payoff.
And let's tell the viewers what the group has said. This is a statement from the Publicis Group. Publicis Group Chairman and CEO Maurice Levy addressed a statement internally to all Publicis Group employees to reiterate the group's no-tolerance policy towards behaviour or commentary counter to the spirit of Publicis Group and its celebration of difference as captured in the motto, Vive la différence. So that's how they dealt with it. My concern, just coming back to the point with you and I, is if you look at past examples, Peter Alliss, do you remember the golf commentator, forced to apologise in a sexism row at the Open? His crime was because he suggested that the winner, Zach Johnson's wife, might want to spend the money on a new kitchen. And he, a veteran commentator like Peter, there's just a sense of humour failure now. People, as I say dopey things. Why do we need this
jokes?
Or bad jokes.
Really bad.
People make bad jokes. People make bad jokes.
I know, I listen to you a lot.
I know, so we don't have to have full, frank apologies because you make a bad joke. It just happens. Move on, is what
Thank you, Nick. Well, it's me next. Talking about how mankind's evolution has hit a stumbling block thanks to the mobile phone. Me next. The rise of the smartphone is killing the art of communication. Children aren't talking to people and their communication skills are being diluted. Research this week found that on average, children own their first mobile phone at the age of 7. The Department of Health has commissioned the world's largest study on whether mobile phones affect children's cognitive development. Text, WhatsApp, Facebook, BBM are now the norm of communication for young people. People ask, when should I give my child a smartphone? My answer, whenever you're comfortable with them viewing pornography, because their curiosity will take them there. Real conversations may be old-fashioned, but they're important. I accept there are security advantages to giving phones to children. Parents like knowing where they are. But it's time we made a change. For the good of the next generation, young people should get their first mobile phone at the age of 16 and not before.
Should I be texting you my answer to what you?
But that's what everybody's doing, Rachel.
But here we are. Nice picture, by the way. Nice screensaver.
Look at him with his
you're making some really good points, James. I mean, obviously, we don't want small children watching smartphones, and like in my house, we text each other while we're in the same room and all the rest of it. But I don't think we should ban kids from having smartphones. I'm not in favour of banning anything apart from guns in America. But, you know, I think there are ways round this, and I think there are things to be done. For example, that restaurant that's killing its mobile signal. I think we should kill signal in school. I mean, it does militate against learning. I've had a child who's gone through...
Hang on.
Wait, can I just
If
finish?
you're late for rugby
Secondary
practice,
education.
you've got to ring your mum or dad and say, I'm going to be late because... Yeah, I mean, that's when we need the damn things. That's why...
No, but they are the worst learning tool around. I mean, I have seen my children try and revise for their exams with a smartphone on the desk, and they're on WhatsApp, they're on Facebook the whole time. So they are useless. You're quite right, they should be banned for the rest of the day.
Let me just give you a live example of what you've just said. So just a couple of weeks ago, I was asked to get involved with an organisation that was hiring graduates, and there were 20 graduates, and they said, could you select 2 graduates for? So I said, fine. So I went in, and I got an assessment for these 20 grads. Of the 20 grads, 10 of them, their communication skills were appalling. I was just really surprised. These are smart kids, degrees. They're supposed to stand up and communicate, you know, their ambition, what they're looking for. Their ability to be eloquent in how they presented themselves, you would have been shocked.
You blame that on smartphones?
Yes, I think because they, you know, to me, even my own PA sometimes, I say to her, can you call somebody? And she emails, because she doesn't want to pick up the phone. So I absolutely believe that people are becoming so obsessed and addicted that rather than speaking or communicate... So my point really comes down to I think we need to go back and give the art of communication more importance and encourage people to be confident in how they speak to each other. But I think most children would rather text. I mean, just so you know, today we send more texts than we make calls.
I mean, most teenagers I know, and young people, don't even pick up their phones when you ring them anyway.
Do you text someone in the same room of your house? Are you truthfully saying that?
I don't. I know that lots of people do. No, I would text them upstairs.
No, hang on. Research was published yesterday by Ofcom. 25% of adults, i.e. 1 in 4, has at some times texted another adult in the same room. Now, unless you're texting your girlfriend to say, this is absolutely horrific, let's get out of here, or I hate your mother, or whatever it might be.
Bail.
Yeah, let's bail. Oh, of course, that's the word you use. Let's bail. Jolly good, off to matron. Let's bail. Yaroo. Just like your brother. Let's bail. Well, I just wouldn't. I sort of do it through eye contact or something like that. Let's go. No, I think, Jane, the problem
here
for me...
What's your eye contact for let's bail? Let's bail. Come on.
Yeah, like that. Same for let's pull. You know, like that, just like...
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm not doing very well.
That's your one face.
James, I think this is like if kids are cycling into the path of buses, God forbid, blaming bicycles. It's how you use the facility that you give them. Yeah. So you give a child a bicycle, for God's sake, don't cycle near the roads, make sure you wear a helmet, whatever it might be. Right, here's a mobile phone. This is to be used if you've got to ring mum or me or your brother or sister, whatever like that. You are not going to download pornography, and you are not going to sit at dinner tables, which I also understand happens, where instead of encouraging conversation, and you can probably realise I was very fortunate that my parents insisted that we all spoke at dinner table, that they don't, and they just sit there texting their chums. So it's the implementation and the utilisation of the phone that's the problem.
But we're failing then, aren't we, Nick?
But that's parents, isn't it? That's not the mobile phone's problem.
I get that, but the point I'm making is you're right, but we're failing because you and I know, Nick, we walk into a restaurant...
Oh, I know.
Or and what do you see kids doing? They're just sitting
there.
there.
But adults are doing it as well. You're making out there's only children. If adults are on their phone the whole time... There was another study out last year which was talking about how children are feeling more and more neglected by their parents who are busy doing... You've got 2 phones on the desk of the pledge.
They're the scourge of modern life.
You know, everybody is addicted to them. And
what can we do, then?
I try and have a day off in the weekend where I don't look at it at all. And I really do very badly. I do try, though, because we are in danger of living, basically, a dual life. And I have to say, I was at the age where people started getting phones when we were 12. They weren't smartphones. And I held out, I think I was about 14 or 15, and I remember feeling like my friends stopped talking to me.
What's your view, Michelle?
Do you feel like that?
Well, my view is that I think you saying about we're losing the art of communication, but the art of communication is changing. I think that the future is technology. It is...
For the worse, then?
Yeah, so
we want face-to-face communication. We want actual human interaction.
Yeah, but I just had a 2-year-old stay with me for a week, and I was astonished by... She'll pick up my phone, she knows what she's doing, she can open this, open that, get pictures.
2-year-old.
But there is a very big difference, isn't there? So if I had children, I'd want to be able to contact them and make sure that they're safe, but you can do that with a mobile phone as opposed to a smartphone. So there's 2 different things. So when the parents are saying about safety and I'm late for football, you can give them a mobile. I used to have one Nokia 7210 or whatever it was. The battery lasted for weeks and weeks, and the worst that you could get up to was play Snake or whatever it was on the phone. So you can combat the safety aspect with a mobile phone and take the smartness out of it. But then the problem is you send your kid to school with a mobile phone as opposed to a smartphone, they're going to get bullied no end.
But I'm sure this 2-year-old is lovely, but address James's point, as and when she has to present herself for an interview with someone like James, or indeed you employ... I mean, fantastic that she can control your mobile phone, but she won't be able to present herself properly.
So
this is the problem, isn't it?
I help people get back into employment, and I'll look at people's CVs or I'll talk to them, and they write in text speak. They abbreviate stuff. And you look at it and you go, like, have you actually read what you're saying? And they'll read it out and they'll talk normally, but when they're writing, it's text speak. And I look at them and I go, do you know what? No decent employer is going to pick that up and employ you when you communicate like that. Incredible. But then the response that you get is, I'll employ myself.
The response you get is LOL. Imagine that in an
LOL.
You've got the job, LOL!
That my mum still thinks means lots of love, by the way. She does. She's not grasped it.
Yes, I do.
So what are we saying? Are we saying...
I think you have to do a better job of parenting, James. I'm really sorry. I think that's the conclusion. And with that...
You need to lead by example and just have one phone instead of 2 anyway.
We need to
Plan A and Plan B. Steady.
Right, it's me next. And amazingly, Nick, we've agreed twice today. Can we make it a hat-trick? MP has suggested that male refugees who are settling in the UK should be given lessons about female equality as part of their integration process. What's more, this MP wants to roll out such courses to British boys and men too. While the idea has horrified some, I think it seems eminently practical. Norway and Finland are already delivering such integration and orientation courses to refugees at their reception centres. There are many nuanced aspects to Western culture that simply aren't the same as where many of these people hail from. These differences, rightly or wrongly, were a central part of the debate after the horrific sex attacks in Cologne. Even the very idea that a woman can freely live alone in the UK is a surprise to certain male refugees, or that she can decide when or who to date. Such classes may sound slightly trite and patronising to some, but if done well, they could be seen as an educational welcome to an enlightened country where women are getting a better deal as the years go on and on.
Any idea what these classes will comprise?
I do have a few ideas, actually. I have looked across to Finland and Norway. I can show you a slide. If you look at Finnish law and sex, what they say about this, and I find this staggering that this even needs to be taught. We do have a slide here. It says, law forbids sex or touching another person without his or her permission. Women dress for looks, not touches. I'm not saying every refugee that comes into this country needs to hear that.
I understand.
There is another slide I could show you, but it's along the lines of what you would probably consider sex and education, stuff that we do in school, and also around LGBT and the way that we treat people who want to have equal marriages.
OK, so I have a question. If you're sent on assignment by a media organisation to Saudi Arabia, do you think it would be a good idea to walk down the street in a bikini drinking from a bottle of vodka?
No.
Thank you. So why should it not be that it's beholden on people who come to this country to learn how you behave in the West? If we know how to behave when we go to, quotes, their countries, really ugly, but just for the purpose of debate, if we know how to behave where we go elsewhere in the world, why shouldn't it be beholden on them to learn? Why have I got to pay my tax dollars, tax pounds, to start giving these people classes?
Oh, so you disagree with the idea of the lessons, they should just learn it anyway?
I find it truly extraordinary. If I'm invited into someone's house, right, just to keep the analogy going, I'm seeking asylum, I want to be a migrant, I will learn to respect and live by their rules, whatever they might be. We do drink wine at lunch, we don't drink wine at lunch, we do this, we go to bed, the kids get up, right?
But we do have an issue in this country, and the Labour MP that's looking at this is in charge of looking at the integration of refugees. She is part of the committee that's looking at, a parliamentary committee that's trying to figure out how we can better integrate refugees into our society. This is one element that was picked up as a very interesting element in light of what happened in Cologne. And I think it's a really interesting debate and issue because we want to be a multicultural community as a country.
To spend money?
Hang on a minute, we want to be a multicultural community, but we know we failed in many ways because people just stay in their own pockets.
Hold on.
And we need to open up those walls.
Multiculturalism does not work. Tolerance of other cultures, of course, but you have to have a monoculture in that we are a Western country, we are basically a Christian country, and it informs our life. Of course you can be Jewish, of course you can be Buddhist.
The very fact that people don't know these things, when I was looking at these slides, the very fact that some people will be surprised by some of those things, you're saying learn the rules. Well, if you're a refugee, which is specifically what we're talking about, then you're not going to be given a manual or the internet on your way over here on a boat, are you?
Why can't you be given a leaflet by Border Force just saying in many languages what are the cultural expectations of you becoming
those things already exist.
And coming and live?
Well,
I don't think they do.
No, well, hang on a minute. I've read a fantastic book about what it was to become here as a German refugee and what it was to come here from my grandmother when she was an Austrian refugee.
What was it issued?
It was a leaflet. She was given a leaflet on how to...
That's all fine.
This is the modern-day version of people actually being taught through.
How do you get people to turn up?
Being given a leaflet, sometimes in a language you might not yet know.
Well,
I think we should also have...
in their language, Emma, and now it's become a leaflet.
No. I was... Sorry, 1 minute. You're talking about a leaflet. I was saying there is a leaflet. Right. There are things out there. But we should go further to help people with lessons. Because...
What if they don't attend?
They'll have to. They have to in Finland. They have to in Norway.
So you deport them?
Yes. There are rules in place.
I see. So someone doesn't turn up for his or her lessons and they get deported.
Who's going to organise this and pay for this?
The cost is going to be...
Shall we not have a health and education system in this country first before we educate our refugees into how to go on buses or go to
I know you are
clinics.
pro-people who need refuge coming to this country. I know we all are.
Of course, I'm very pro-refugee. I would prefer them to learn by our example.
We need to do the
best
possible job we can for them, and can we all agree that we probably aren't right now? Do you actually know any of the ways in which refugees are being integrated into British society right now? We're all debating it like we do. We don't.
They're being housed,
they have
healthcare, I hope.
117,000 people is what you're talking about, yeah? We currently, if you just look, the government are cutting back on essential services to the people that are already here, people, you know, that have paid their taxes, etc. I'm slightly concerned that whilst we, you know, there's austerity, you know, government financially is in the worst financial position we've been in history. So all of a sudden, to now take away critical elements of our budget to educate 117,000 people, you know, is that really the most important thing we should be doing right now? I'm not saying that these people could do with...
It's a trade-off. You want them to come in, you want them to work, you want them to be part of the economy, you want them to be part of culture. And actually, the reason this particular debate came up and the reason this MP was even giving this interview was off the back of the dialogue that came up after the Cologne attacks. And she said she didn't want people to be in a place where they equate the two in a way where nothing is then being done proactively by the government or by MPs. And there is a situation where I think MPs sometimes just can't win. You know, if they aren't taking proactive action, people say, well, why are we not educating these people in the way that we live? And then if they do try and do something, you immediately say, well, we're cutting the NHS, so let's not do anything for that.
A quick question. When you get a British passport, you have to take a test, don't you? You have to learn about the country and all that kind of thing. Couldn't we do something where...
This is what she's suggesting. It could be added on to those processes. It's not going to necessarily even be that costly. You've gone, unlike with the Olympic debate, it's gone straight to the bottom line here, when actually we're talking about how to welcome people into a country properly.
I think if it was added to a process where we made it clear that in order for you to be eligible to stay in this country, you have to take a test, and part of that test is understanding the values and equalities, etc.
You know it's wrong to grope women.
But I used to live and work in India, and when I went over there,
by the way.
Yeah, but I was only very young, and I went over there and I was living and working there, and nobody, when I arrived in India, sat me down and said, right, Michelle, you know, when you wander around, you have to cover up your shoulders or do this or do... Nobody did that. I took it upon myself to educate and research and learn for myself because I wanted to be respectful of the culture that I was temporarily a part of. I wanted that. I wanted to not make anyone feel uncomfortable. I wanted to, you know, be a contributing member of that community and society. It was my responsibility to do that. And one of the problems for me, because I agree with you, nobody should be roaming around, groping and doing whatever they want to do. That's disgusting. They shouldn't be here behaving in that way. But we're often talking about grown men. They've come here, they want the hospitality, they want to be cared for, they want to be fed, clothed and housed and looked after and to be free and safe. And with that becomes a responsibility. It's a two-way street.
Which lots of them will, by the way. I thought the issue I was going to have here was that you were going to say how awful for, let's say, refugees who are surgeons or educated coming here, being patronised and being given these classes. I didn't think the issue would be the cost and it has to be beholden to them. I think we're in a situation here where we probably all agree on some level about people working themselves into this society. It's just, I think that not necessarily some of the architecture is there.
But it's like when I go into, like, if I go into a... But I
learn by example. So when in Rome, it's just 3 words. When in Rome. And when they're in this country, learn by example.
But if you choose to come and live in the UK, there should be expectations put upon you that you make an effort for yourself.
Yeah.
So, for example, slightly off topic but also related, when I go into various different council offices or stuff like that, the amount of different languages that things are translated into, whether it's my doctor's surgery when I'm checking in or whether it's the housing office, wherever it is, there's so many different languages. And I feel that if you want to live here, you have to integrate.
Yes,
you have to. And you have to do that with personal responsibility. You have to make an effort to learn the language. You have to make an effort to understand the culture and to be a part of it.
And then the benefit of living in this country you will accrue because you will join in with it. That's the whole thing of what you need to achieve, surely.
Agree.
I think Englishness classes, to me, sounds like a first world reaction to a third world problem. You know, first world problem, third world problem. And it's actually incumbent on the people who come here and accept our hospitality to make the first move, not us as a nation to indoctrinate them into our values.
Add it to the process.
Well, I hope
of
this parliamentary committee has been watching the pledge. They are consulting on it right now, and maybe we will have informed some of their opinion. Way back on the 21st of April, the Queen celebrated her 90th birthday, and we launched The Pledge. I wonder if Her Majesty has been watching.
Okay. People gonna talk about the way you do. They're gonna talk matter what you do. Near or far, day or night, they're gonna talk, be it wrong or right. People gonna talk about you anyway. They're gonna talk, well, night and day, day and night, night and day. They're gonna talk anyway. Oh, you see, they've just got to yakety, yakety, yakka. Oh, don't they know they're not to the moment you turn your back?
Thank you very much.
I think I need to smile more. Look at this. Take this for the next montage. Lots of those frowns were directed just at you.
Probably, yeah.
So that is it for the first series of The Pledge. 16 shows, 80 debates, and still no victories for Nick Ferrari. Send us a tweet to say which of us you think deserves to be back for season 2. I'm not worried.